Yeah, thank you for that, Greg. Yeah, I've got a few slides here that I'd love to share. Our focus is really to change the way people think about recruiting. In fact, one of the reasons that we believe people are struggling so much to recruit right now is because they're doing it the way they've always done it. And the job market has changed, external factors have changed. I mean, just think back the last couple of years with the pandemic. So much has changed, not just in the way that we work, but the way we educate our children, the way we spend time with our families, what we do for fun. And so if we don't change with what's going on in the market, we're going to struggle to keep up. So at Core Matters, our vision is to create positive work environments for 500,000 employees by helping small business owners hire and retain the right people. We believe that when you create teams of the right people, you will attract more people to your business. What I'd love to do is I want to share some of the things that really support that idea that we need to change. When we talk to employers all over the country, they often tell us, well, I use Indeed, or I use ZipRecruiter, I use Monster, and they're using these job boards the way they've always used them. And the problem is that we end up sorting through a lot of applications from the job boards. We're going to get 82% of our applications from the job boards, but we're only going to make just over 1% of our hires from those applications. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't need more busy work in my life, and I'm sure your team doesn't either. So we really have to think, if the quality hires aren't on the job boards, where are they at? Because if we only keep fishing from the same place, we're going to spend a lot of time. Because on average, you're going to interview 20 people for one hire. And like Greg said, we work with small and medium-sized businesses. So these are companies with smaller teams that really don't have the extra manpower or resources to handle it. Another thing that we have to do is we have to let go of our millennial jokes. I know as employers, we all have them. We all talk about how millennials are this way or that way. We got to let those go, because they know we say those things about them. They know that we feel that way about them, but they now account for 50% of the workforce. So 1 out of 2 employees is going to be a millennial, and Gen Z is just right behind them. And for millennials, 93% prioritize skill development and training. It's never about the dollar. Now, I know we're going to talk about the Inflation Act here in a little bit and some of the things going on in the economy. And yes, we have to keep up with inflation. We have to pay people really what they're worth. We have to make sure we stay on top of that. But at the end of the day, what people want is they want to be invested in. And that means they want skill development, they want training, they want career pathing, they want mentoring. So if you can provide that, and you can get credit for providing that in advertising it, adding it to your job ads, you can do really well in attracting a younger workforce. And this is the stat that always gets a lot of people. 86% of them take a pay cut to work at a place whose mission and values align with their own. What this means is that millennials will actually want to make less money when they're excited about going to work, when they're excited about the work they're doing, when they're excited about the impact that they're making. Now, you might have a business that creates commodities and things that aren't exciting, and maybe it's not a sexy product or a service, but you can still create this same kind of environment where people feel like they're being poured into, where they feel like they're being invested in, and they actually want to get out of bed every morning, come put in a hard day's work for a good day's pay, and not have to chase the dollar. The other thing is that we have to understand is that people are only passively looking for work. So right now, if you think about this, passive job seekers are those that they're not on the job board. They aren't dusting off their resume or polishing their interview skills. What they're doing, they're talking to their friends and their family. They're doing a Google search for a specific company or an industry. They're reading the news to see what companies are in the news and winning best places to work, for example. Maybe they're going out on social media and they're looking the company up and seeing what's going on. Maybe they have a friend at a company that they've heard great things about. More than 70% of the job market is passively looking. So this is where we get into retention a lot too, because that means that 7 out of 10 people that work for you are open to another opportunity. They're not actively looking for it. They probably don't have a polished resume. They aren't polishing their interview skills. But if the right opportunity came to them, they would take it. And the reason so many people are only passively looking is because it is considered one of life's most stressful events for the majority of the population. There's a psychological stressors list that goes out every year, and looking for work is on that list. This is the same list as death of a loved one, or divorce, or relocation, or loss of job. Looking for work is on that same list. So as employers, if we can put ourselves into the shoes of the job seeker, we can go, wow, this is a stressful time for them, especially those that are gainfully employed. Think about that. If they've worked for someone else already, and it's not horrible for them, but they're open to new opportunities, they're taking a risk by quitting their job that they know to come work for an employer that they don't. And oftentimes it doesn't work out. In fact, you've heard of the Great Resignation. They're now pointing at the Great Regret, because almost half of the people that resigned and went somewhere else are regretting their decision. They actually want their old job back because it wasn't what they thought. And then we've all heard this phrase before. People don't leave jobs, they leave managers, they leave people, they leave bosses, they leave teams, they leave company culture. And if we believe this to be true, which I absolutely do, and the data supports this, then what we need to do is we need to start promoting our open positions in a way that sells our people and our team and our culture, and not be so focused on pay and benefits, because that's not what people want. And then finally, most people will agree that employee referrals are some of the best employees they can get. And there's a few reasons for that. But I believe that the primary one is what Gallup looks at when they look at their engagement surveys. Gallup has a 12-question engagement survey. And one of the questions they have learned is a great predictor for employee engagement. And the question is, do you have a best friend at work? And if the answer to that question is yes, the odds are you've got an engaged employee. So the reason employee referrals are so great and you always find good employees is they have a built-in best friend. They have someone that they already know that they're connected with. So if you're not putting more into your employee referral program right now, if everybody in your organization does not know that you have a good employee referral program, make sure. Because you're 13 times more likely to hire from your referral. And here's the thing about employee referral programs. Don't make it about the cash incentive, because only 6% of people are going to refer for money and recognition. Remember, this is one of life's most stressful events for people. So imagine me calling up my brother and be like, hey, Scott, I know your wife is still pissed at me for the last crazy harebrained idea I had, but why don't you quit your job and come work over here now? My boss is going to give me $500. Those conversations don't happen because I'm not going to risk a relationship for a few $100s. So find other ways to motivate and incentivize people to do referrals. And this goes back to the beginning where I talked about how we just don't have the resources when we're an SMB. Almost half of a company's new hires come from referrals, yet only account for 7% of the applicants. So think about that for a moment. Less work, more results. We work smarter, not harder, when we invest and we put a lot of effort behind employee referrals. So this is just the beginning of some of the things that we talk about and some of the ways I want you to think about recruiting, because there is so much opportunity for you. There's so much opportunity for your team to become attractive to the people that you want to attract to join your team. Thanks, Greg.
Well, thank you, Ryan. That was extremely insightful. The statistics on referral. So the bottom line is we have all this social media and we're churning all this data and images, but it's basically the old-fashioned way. Referral generates like 5, 6, 7, 8 times the people than all the job boards and fancy stuff. And I think that is really important to remember that millennials, they want a purpose. And if you're going to run your business where it succeeds, it needs to be run for a purpose. And I think lining the two things up just seems like common sense and natural. And of course, cut out the millennial jokes. Yeah, the other day I saw a really great post that was, I think it was in GQ magazine or something, and it said 40 things that boomers do that are uncool. So one of those things is I did not wear a Hawaiian shirt today because I'm told by millennials that wearing a Hawaiian shirt is uncool. So I didn't do that today. But again, another really common sense thing, you're really building a culture. You're building an organization that has a mission statement and a purpose. And then everything starts to line up and click. Without those, it's a struggle. So if anybody has any questions, you can, for Ryan, you can put them in the chat. Now, Ryan, we have a showcase page for you off the Power and Performance Coaching page. And don't you have a master class that's free where people can come and spend a few hours and really kind of get down what these techniques are?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have, it's a 1 hour masterclass. As I said, we're very focused on, we're all busy. So a lot of information packed into 1 hour. But we dig a little bit more into how you can actually apply the information you get from this data. We're very data driven over here at Core Matters. And as much as I love throwing mud up against a wall and waiting for something to stick, I'd rather make more of an educated decision before we go do something.
Right.
And so we're very obsessed with data. So I do dig into some more of the data so that people really understand what's happening. But beyond that, how do you apply this information and make the necessary adjustments that you need to make so you can start recruiting more effectively?
Well, that's a key thing in business. I use this analogy all the time. And because I used to be at, Continental Airlines and then another airline called Jet America. But I tell people, if you're going to run your business, you're like a pilot. There's two types of pilot. There's VFR, visual flight rules. You can only fly during good weather and under the clouds and all this stuff. And there's IFR, instrument flight rules. That's the pros. And that's what all small business owners have the difficulty getting, that transition of looking at the numbers, what you're talking about, and what Matt's talking about. Look at your reviews and get the insights. They're telling you something, and you need to absorb them and adjust them, because when you do that, then all of a sudden, everything's easier, and that's why we've named all these things the business freedom, because the number one reason people start their own business 36% of the time is they want more freedom. And what happens is, when you don't go by the numbers and you don't look at the insights, you feel trapped and you don't feel free because the circumstances are dictating to you. And when you learn how to read the numbers, like, take Ryan's masterclass, it's only an hour. You learn how to apply this, you apply it, and boom, all of a sudden, instead of being the second largest problem, no qualified employees, it goes away because you've learned what you need to do to attract and keep those people. Also interesting here about the great regret, the great resignation, now the great regret. They've like jumped from the frying pan into the fire and trying to figure out where we go from here. Thank you, Ryan. That was really insightful. Again, take a look at the showcase page and it'll show you things. So